back to another episode of Books and Beers. So today we have a different episode. We actually interviewed our first author ever, which is really cool.
Awesome experience.
His name is Roland Merullo. He's written several books, and the book that we're going to talk about is the last book he released, which is From These Broken Streets.
We're going to cut to the interview now. We did a Zoom, so enjoy.
Hello, how are you, Roland? How's everything?
How are you guys? How's Boston?
Good.
How are you liking it?
I like it a lot. Like I said with Barney, I'm a huge fan of the snow. I think it's because I'm not here usually, but they're not as biggest fans, so I think it's been a little struggle to get people to go down and play with the snow.
He's super excited about the snow.
Yeah.
How's everything over there?
You guys in Miami, born and bred?
Yes.
No, we were born in Venezuela.
We were born in Venezuela, and then we moved to Miami. We went to high school together, and then like we mentioned in the email, we started this channel about 6 months ago actually, and like we said, so we do a review of a beer and a book every single week. And that actually brings us to our first question, which is, before we get started with the book, we wanted to ask you about the beer. So we actually purchased one ourselves, and tell us a little bit about this. Is this your favorite beer?
Yeah, this is, I got it right here. Yeah.
Well, what's a porter beer?
Porter is like a darker beer. I don't know that much about beers, but I think it's on, there's light and dark. And
Right.
Guinness is like one extreme. And then you got stout and porter coming in from that extreme toward the lighter beers,
Yeah.
I just don't like the beers unless they have a lot of darkness to them.
Roland, so I see back there, I see your bookshelf. Are those all your books?
No, these are all my books. Let's see if I can.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Those are foreign editions like China, Croatia, Korea, that kind of stuff.
How many books have you written so far?
25, I think, altogether.
25.
17 novels and 8 other books. Some of the other books are small. A couple of them are travel books, food, golf.
And how did you get into writing? Like how does one become a writer? Packed question, but
my path is not the recommended route. I grew up in a working class neighborhood, Italian neighborhood outside of Boston, and it was not a realistic career for me. There was nobody I knew did that. My parents were much more interested in me being successful in terms of, becoming a doctor or something.
the classic way.
My father had not been able to go to college. He graduated in the Depression, so he wanted that for me. And so for a few years in college and after college, I did other things, and I wasn't miserable doing them. I worked for the U.S. government in the Soviet Union.
Yeah, awesome.
I went in the Peace Corps in Micronesia. I drove a cab for a while. I did a lot of different things, and I was unfulfilled, I think would be the word.
Right.
And I decided when I was 25 that I wanted to be a writer. I was able to let go of what other people wanted for me, what my father and mother wanted, what my friends did in school. I went to fancy prep school, a good college,
Of course.
And so the impulse was always to go in that direction, make a lot of money, have a certain kind of house. It just wasn't what I wanted. So it took me some years to let go of that. And once I let go of that, I was like 25. I started to write very seriously. And I had to do other things to make a living. I was a carpenter. Right. I went back and worked in the Soviet Union, 2 long tours with the U.S. Information Agency. Wow. And I got married, and then finally, it took me from the time I really decided I would want to be serious about it until the time I had a book published was 12 years.
12 years.
Wow.
Imagine.
Wow. That's interesting because I talk about my dad a lot because he's also a big reader, and he just recently started writing. And we have this ongoing thing that we always say that the best thing you can do is read, but at a certain point, after you read many books, you're probably going to become a writer. So, it's interesting to see that. And to see how you became a writer, because obviously a lot of people probably want to follow that path, but they're probably scared about who's going to read it or something like that.
Yeah, no, and obviously, like, sorry, being from like Venezuela, we also have like the parents that want us to like be successful the classic way, go to college, get a good paying job, and we understand like the struggle of like wanting to follow your passion, but like society in a way, the society around you not letting you, which is pretty cool.
Interesting, yeah.
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
understand why your parents would feel that way. I understand why my parents felt that way.
Of course.
What they really want for you is for you to be happy.
Yep.
And I had to say that to my parents. I said, look, this is the life that would make me happy. The sad thing for me is my father died before I published a book.
Oh.
We were very close. So he died long before he published the book, so that was tough. But I don't feel bad about the decision. I would have been unhappy doing something else, I think.
Of course, and I'm sure if he was here, he'd be incredibly proud because we're not dark beer drinkers. We're not fiction readers. We've recently gotten into fiction, and I love the style of Broken Streets, which is fiction, but it has like it's a real story at the end of the day. And we wanted to ask you how did you get that idea? I know you mentioned it a little bit in the acknowledgements, but maybe talk about like that idea, that process of like writing Broken Streets. And honestly, you wrote it extremely fast. Like I thought it would take a longer time to write the book, which was pretty impressive that you wrote it. I think it was under a year.
Yeah, I write fast. I don't know why. I don't know why that is, but it is. I grew up in an Italian American community. My mother was English American, but my father was Italian. Most of my relatives around me were Italians, and there were parts of it I loved and parts of it I didn't love. And for whatever reason, I thought the parts I didn't love would be stronger in Italy. And that was a gigantic mistake. So one time, my wife and we had worked in the Soviet Union. We had a free trip home. We traveled in Europe, and we just passed through the corner of Italy, like on the way to France.
Okay.
And we stopped in Torino, and we had a meal, and it was a very simple pasta, salad, glass of wine, and it was absolutely perfect. One of the best meals we've ever had. And we were driving out and we were going down these streets lined with stone houses, old stone houses and trees. And the people were so friendly. And I thought, I made a gigantic mistake.
It'll be beautiful.
thinking that the things I disliked about Italian Americans would be exaggerated in Italy when the reverse is actually true. So from that day, we've been back there 13 times. And the second part of that story is similar because we never went to Naples. I have two girls. We traveled with them when they were small. I heard Naples was rough, crime, dirty, the mafia, men grabbing women, and I didn't want to go there. I was a little intimidated. And then a friend of mine said, "You're being really stupid." So we went, and it was the same feeling. It's like, what a gigantic mistake I made, because I love Naples. Naples is just the liveliest place I've ever been on earth. It's incredibly nice people, good food, great history, all these old buildings. So I started to think about setting a book there, and I came upon this story of the 4 days of Naples, where the people of Naples rose up and chased the Nazis out. And it's really unique in the horrible history of the Nazi occupation of Europe. And it was just so incredible to me. I said, I have to write this into a novel. But that became very complicated because the actual events, are almost impossible to believe. A bunch of people with stolen guns fighting the German army. I mean, it's And then it was such a it happened all over the city at the same time. And so I had to figure out a way to tell that story without writing a 5,000-page book,
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say was we went back 3 times to do the research. We hired a guide on foot. We hired a guide in a car. We just walked around a lot ourselves and talked to people, and I read stuff. And the research was fun. It was really a lot of fun. Probably more than any book I've written, the research was fun.
Roland, and I wanted to tell you that what you mentioned, that like the ending of the book is amazing. It has so much action, and there's action happening all over the city, which you mentioned. And I wanted to say that one of the things that I liked about Broken Streets the most was the point of view that you use, that you tell the story of individual people without them meeting until the end, pretty much. And you see like all the actions that are happening, Lucia in the hospital, Giuseppe fighting, all this stuff happening, and I think that was one of the best things. And what I wanted to ask you is, how do you organize, like, because it's 71 chapters, like how do you organize all these stories? It was probably a headache.
I'm going to see if I have a piece of paper here that gives you an idea, because I'm doing the same thing for the next book, and it gets so complicated. I don't write outlines. I don't like to write from an outline, but this is just a list of chapters and what happens.
Oh, wow.
Very briefly, what pages, and you can get so mixed up. Like you can have things happening today that were warned about tomorrow. You know what I mean? That
Right.
to get the sequence correct.
Yeah, that was pretty
Very,
cool
very-
how they connect.
There were times I was like going nuts, you know.
But it's pretty cool how you connect them. It's like in one chapter, Lucia's walking and she's like, "Oh, I see a kid on the street, or I threw him a coin." Giuseppe threw a coin, and then 2 chapters later, it's Armando like catching the coin. And like,
Yeah.
it's really cool how it connects.
It's a little bit of an advanced technique. I think beginning writers, I would probably advise them to try to just tell a straightforward story.
A linear story, yeah.
It has some big advantages that, you know, as you were saying, you can see the world from different points of view.
Yeah.
And you can create a certain tension by bringing the characters across each other's paths, as you just said.
Right.
And the disadvantages are, for some readers, it's too complicated. They can't follow. I've had people say, I get mixed up. I don't know where I am in the book. And that, you know,
Okay.
you have to, if you're going to write seriously, you have to accept the fact that some people are just not going to like the book. It's just the way it
Right.
is.
Yeah, it's normal.
That's one of the things that we always talk about is that, so in our channel we always try to allude to people to read more, because we're surrounded with people that don't read that much. And one thing that people have a hard time is reading a book and then maybe disagreeing with the points, or just reading a book and not liking it that much. That's one of the things that we always said. One thing that we wanted to ask you is, this being a fiction book, and obviously being a book that like grabs you and you get very hooked, you've probably been asked this about any other book, but have you ever thought of the idea of this book becoming a movie?
Yeah, I'd love it to become a movie, but that's not
You
up
love
to
it?
me. Yeah. I have 2 books optioned for film. A golf book called Golfing with God,
Okay.
and a book called American Savior, in which Jesus Christ comes to earth and runs for president of the United States.
Oh wow.
Wow.
A pretty
Yeah.
radical idea, and dangerous, because
Of
as you
course.
probably know, the 2 things that can piss people off quicker than anything are politics
Religion
and
and
religion.
politics. Yeah.
But they're optioned. That book is also optioned for the stage, for like a Broadway play or something.
Like a Broadway play. And what's an option?
The way it works is that if someone wants to make your book into a film, they can buy the rights right away. But most of the time, what they do is option it, which means they have the exclusive right. They give you a certain sum of money, like 10 or 15,000. In my case, if you're a famous writer, it would be a lot more.
Okay.
They give you a certain sum of money, and then they have the rights for 18 months.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Nobody else can work on it. And they develop it. They try to get directors and actors, and they try to raise money. And after 18 months, if they can either let it go, they can renew the option for another 18 months, or they can buy the rights. If they buy the rights, it's usually a lot of money. It's usually
A lot of money, yeah.
$250,000 and up.
Okay.
You know, if it's like the Harry Potter books,
It's millions and millions.
they're probably $20 million, you know.
Right.
So I've had a lot of books optioned, a lot, and some of them have been optioned for 8 years, you know, uninterrupted. But I've never had a film made, and the film is more money for me. It would be nice for me. You know?
It'd be nice, of course. Always nice.
What's interesting is I've read a fiction. So the last fiction book I read was The Alchemist, obviously a super well-known book. And I remember reading the bio after in Wikipedia, and Paulo Coelho said that he didn't want any of the books to be made into a film because he wanted each person to have their own point of view from the book. He didn't want like a certain point of view from the book being made into a film, and people just have that idea of how everything became a film. What was your point of view there? Is that something that scares you when you think of your books becoming a film?
Yeah, I have a couple of things to say about that. First of all, I understand that. Some writers don't like to have a picture of a person's face on the cover of the book. For that same reason, like they want you to imagine what that character looks like, you know.
Of course.
What Hemingway's famous comment was, knowing that once you sell the book, they can do anything with it, basically.
Yeah.
He said, you take the book to the California border, you throw it over, they throw over the money, and you walk away.
When you walk away.
Like, in other words, if you're going to worry about what they do with the book, you shouldn't sell it. You know, you can, in the contracts, which are very complicated, you can insist that they don't do certain things. You can insist that they keep the title. You can insist that they don't do, but they have a lot of leeway to change the story. And many writers I know get upset when they see the story on the film because it's not the same. You know?
Yeah, of course. Like they don't portray the writer's vision, but it's what you say. Like if you're gonna sell the rights, you have to live with it. And you mentioned that you were writing a new book. Do you have like an idea of when you're gonna release it and like what's about?
Yeah,
more or less.
Yeah, I have a contract. It should be out either in December or I would guess in the end of this year. It's another World War II book set in Italy. It's the third one for me, and I think I've said enough about that subject. It's, you know, Italy. I care about Italy. I've always been obsessed with World War II history, and this is the last one I think that I'll do with that.
Awesome.
I have a small question before Barney gives his last question. It's I want to learn more about World War II. What is your go-to recommendation as a book that talks about World War II, besides obviously From These Broken Streets?
I'm gonna write. I can't remember the guy's name, but there's a series. I just can't remember his name right now, but there's a series of books that he's written, and I will email the name to you.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely add it. We'll definitely add it.
Absolutely incredible. Absolutely, like they're all about this thick.
Okay.
They focus on different aspects, you know, different campaigns. Rick Atkinson, I just remembered his name.
Okay. Perfect. We'll look into him. And one last question, Ronald, before taking any more of your time. For our viewers, if you had that haven't read your book, if you had to pitch them your book or leave them with a thought, what would you say from Broken Streets? Like,
I think I try to get into the humanity of people. I feel like we focus on labels. You know, somebody's a man, a woman, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever they are. That's, you know, that matters for sure. I mean, I'm proud of my identity, but below that, we're all really the same. I mean, you want love, you're afraid, you feel pain, you have relatives you care for, you know you're going to die. You know, we're much more alike than different. And so when I write, I really, in this book and all my other books, I really try to go deep. What I think of is like, here's the surface identity of a person. You know, they're a white man, 67 years old, born in Revere, Massachusetts, you know. But,
right.
But we focus so much on that, you know, but down below that is all the real stuff. And that real stuff is where we're the same, you know. And so I try to show people in different circumstances. In this case, the terror of war, the horror of war, which really is, and I won't go on and on, but it really is the failure to recognize the humanity of another person. You can't torture somebody.
Of course.
You can't rape somebody if you recognize their humanity. So that's my thing.
Yeah.
What I was impressed, especially with the book, and I was talking with Barney about it, is obviously we weren't alive for World War II, but this book incredibly drafted, like changed my point of view of how it was to live in that life. Because every single time you were talking about Naples, you will say this was a street that was usually filled with people selling, you know, fish or people dancing in the streets. Now it was empty. No one was talking about it. And besides that, obviously, you having a great ability of describing scenes was your ability to describe scenes between two people. Like a normal conversation, there was just one of the characters sitting down with the other character, you being able to give that detail that made you feel like you were sitting in that room with them was one of the things that I like about the book the most.
And another thing, really quickly, is what you mentioned, we obviously didn't live through World War II, but we can relate, at least I could relate in a way, of feeling the desperation of some people of living through Mussolini, then Mussolini gets taken down, and then the Nazis come because we're from Venezuela.
Yeah.
And Chavez was there for 15 years. He passed away, and then Maduro came over. And at the end, when you describe the happiness and the acceleration that people felt when they saw the Nazis like being driven away, is what I feel like I would feel if Maduro was like being taken away. And it's like finally like all that desperation goes away, all that, you know, it's like liberating.
I was thinking of that when you said you were from Venezuela. My wife studied in Colombia for a while, and in the days when they were having a lot of political trouble, not the same exactly as what you're having, but no, if you look at history, I mean, it happens again and again. My daughter lived in Cambodia. You know what happened in Cambodia? It was absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
Right.
Mussolini, Hitler, Stalin, Pol Pot in Cambodia, Idi Amin in Africa. I mean, it just seems to be part of the human condition, but it's a terrible part. And I feel for Venezuela. I hate to see that stuff happening. You'd like to think, oh, that happened in the past. That happened in World War II, but it happens now. You know,
It happens now, yeah.
And the suffering involved is horrific to me. It's really.
Do you think? I don't know how many books you're planning to write, but do you think if something in Venezuela were ended, you will do the same routine of researching and then writing a book about Venezuela, what's going on right now?
If I like going there, is the food good?
Yes,
It's amazing.
It is good. It is good.
I'd like to go, I'd like to see South America. I've never been there. I'd love to see something good happen in Venezuela. I did write a book set in Cuba. Actually, I wrote it before I went to Cuba. And it got published before I went to Cuba. And then I went to Cuba and I kind of sneaked in a little bit. I went through Canada and I got in, and it was a little dicey, but the Cuban situation is fascinating to me. I spent so much time in the Soviet Union, what happened there. It's complicated and fascinating to me.
We actually have many friends from Cuba, and they tell us that, or their parents, that it's like, I actually have a friend that went recently, and he told me that it's like being stuck in a time machine, because it's like you're in 1980.
It's sad. I mean, on the one hand, there's not a lot of crime. There's not a lot of drugs. No one seems really hungry. That part is good.
Right.
But the freedoms, of course, are not. The lack of freedom is terrible, and the level of want. I spent half the time in this tourist hotel. And then I just left and took a cab and went to Old Havana and stayed in a room with no windows. And the people aren't hungry, they're not starving, but they, I gave the waitress like, I don't remember. My wife put together some stuff to give her, little things. Okay. It was like I'd given her a diamond or something,
Wow,
that's
sad. Well, Roland, if you ever, sorry, keep going. Go ahead. No, if you ever want to write, honestly, the Venezuelan situation is fascinating. And if you ever want to write a book, or if you ever want to go to Venezuela, we can be your tour guides.
Yeah, we will. Right. Just like the people you mentioned, the acknowledgements that help you with Italy, we'll be those people in Venezuela.
We'll be a tour guides in Venezuela.
All right, we got a deal.
We have one final thing. So we usually, when we have a beer, we rank it from 0 to 5. So this being your recommendation porter, which we saw, it's a Massachusetts beer. What's your ranking from 0 to 5 with the Draymond's porter?
I would. Can I give it a 4.5?
Of course you can. Yeah.
Of course, 4.5.
Awesome, Roland.
It's a good porter.
It's a good porter. Yeah, no, definitely. We like it. It has a good flavor, especially with all the flavor of the coffee, but it's really good. Roland, thank you so much for doing this interview with us. I mean, we truly appreciate it, having the opportunity of reading a book, and also knowing that we're going to talk to the person that read the book made it amazing. This is an amazing book. I mean, we definitely encourage all the people watching this video to go and check it out and stay tuned with you. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Roland.
I really enjoyed it, honestly, and good luck to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roland.
We'll be in touch. Thank you, Roland.
Have a great day.
Take care, you too.
So yeah, there you guys have it. That was our interview with Roland. We're probably gonna do another episode if he's down to do it. That we talk to him again. Hopefully, we'll read another of his books. One of his books. So Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe, like the video. Stay tuned for next week's episode.
Let's get to 150 subscribers.
150, yeah, close. See you guys. Thank you so much.